They sit quietly in pockets, in drawers, in jars on kitchen shelves, seemingly ordinary British 5-pence coins. But among millions minted over the decades, there are 3 coins that stand apart, 3 coins that have captured the obsession of collectors, the envy of historians, and the fascination of treasure hunters around the world. Each one tells a story of rarity, of mystery, of mistakes turned into masterpieces. The first coin is rare, yes, but it's the subtle details, almost invisible to the untrained eye, that make it priceless. The second coin is even more elusive, a piece so scarce that some thought it had vanished forever. And the third is a legend, a coin so coveted that finding one is like discovering a hidden fragment of history itself. A coin that could turn the ordinary change in your pocket into a treasure beyond imagination. If you think you know British coins, think again. This is your chance to witness the top 3 British 5-pence coins that collectors would cross continents to find, that historians still whisper about, and that could transform a simple coin into a fortune. Are you ready to uncover the mystery? The countdown begins now. The story of the British 5-pence coin of 1971 begins at one of the most transformative moments in the history of British currency, when the nation undertook the momentous change from the old pounds, shillings, and pence system to the new decimal currency that would reshape daily life commerce and the entire monetary identity of the United Kingdom. Before 1971, the British public used a system that dated back centuries, with 12 pence to a shilling and 20 shillings to a pound. And while this system carried deep historical meaning, it had become increasingly impractical for a modern industrial society. Many countries around the world had already moved to decimal systems that were easier to calculate and more consistent with international standards, and Britain finally made the decision to follow suit. The changeover, known as Decimal Day, or D-Day, took place on 15th of February 1971, and the introduction of new coins, including the new 5-pence piece, played a central role in preparing the public for the future of British money. The 5-pence coin, introduced in 1971, was not entirely unfamiliar to the British people, because it had first appeared in 1968 as part of the early transition toward decimalization. It was designed to be equivalent in value to the old 1-shilling coin, and for this reason it shared the same size, weight, and general feel as the shilling that people had used for generations. This careful continuity ensured that the public could adopt the new coinage without confusion, and that shopkeepers, banks, and businesses could continue operating smoothly during the national transition. The design of the 1971 5-pence coin reflected both tradition and modernity, featuring on its obverse the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, created by Arnold Machin. This portrait was widely acclaimed for its elegance and became one of the most recognizable images of the Queen during her long reign. The reverse design displayed the crowned thistle of Scotland, created by the artist Christopher Ironside, symbolizing unity, heritage, and the deep connection between the nations of the United Kingdom. As the first fully decimal 5-pence coin circulated across Britain, it became a standard part of daily transactions and a symbol of modernization. Through the 1970s, the British public adjusted to the new monetary system, and the 5-pence coin became an essential unit of value used in shops' markets, bus fares, vending machines, and countless small exchanges. Its durability and the familiarity inherited from the shilling allowed it to settle comfortably into everyday life. Over time, however, as inflation changed the value of money, discussions emerged about whether the sizes of the decimal coins should be reevaluated. Many felt that some of the coins were too large for their relative value, especially as purchasing power shifted. Nonetheless, the original 1971 5-pence coin remained in circulation for 2 decades, serving as a durable link between the pre-decimal and post-decimal monetary eras. Throughout the 1980s, the United Kingdom saw economic changes, technological advances, and increasingly modernized currency production methods, and the Royal Mint began exploring ways to make the coins more efficient for both public handling and industrial processing. These discussions eventually led to a major development in the life of the 5-pence coin. In 1990, the government announced that the 5-pence coin would be reduced in size to make it more practical and to better reflect its actual economic value. Thus, in 1990, the smaller 5-pence coin entered circulation, and the original larger 1971 version gradually began to disappear from wallets and pockets across the country. By 1991, the old larger coins were officially demonetized, ending their 20-year chapter as a circulating denomination. Yet the legacy of the 1971 5-pence coin remains highly significant. For coin collectors and historians, this coin represents one of the most important transitional issues of modern British numismatics. It marks the moment when Britain embraced a simplified, rational, and globally aligned monetary system while still preserving elements of its culture and heritage through thoughtful design choices. The coin also represents a major step in the evolution of British currency because it paved the way for later redesigns, updates, and the continued modernization of the national coinage. Even today, when handling the current smaller 5-pence coin, many people still think of the older version and remember the era when decimalization reshaped everyday life. The 1971 5-pence coin is also valued for its historical context. It stands at the intersection of tradition and change, symbolizing both the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. For millions of people, it was the first decimal coin they ever used, the first sign that the monetary world around them was transforming, and the first step into a system that would become second nature to every generation that followed. The Queen's portrait, the Scottish thistle, and the shared legacy of the shilling all blend together to form a coin that carries deep cultural meaning far beyond its modest face value. It remains a reminder of the early 1970s, a time when the United Kingdom was redefining itself through innovation, modernization, and renewed confidence in the future. With all these historical layers, the 1971 British 5-pence coin remains a compelling subject for collectors, historians, and enthusiasts who continue to appreciate its role in national history and its significance within the broader narrative of the United Kingdom's economic evolution. As we move deeper into the story of the British 5-pence coin of 1971, it becomes increasingly clear that this small piece of metal serves as a window into the broader transformation of British society during the second half of the 20th century. The journey of the coin is closely tied to the technological evolution of minting practices in the United Kingdom. In the years leading up to decimalization, the Royal Mint had already been planning a major shift in how coins were produced. The move from Tower Hill to the new modern facility in Llantrisant, South Wales in 1968 represented a turning point. The new facility allowed for faster, more efficient, and more precise production of the new decimal coins, including the 5-pence piece. The machinery introduced there could produce coins at unprecedented speed and accuracy, ensuring that the country would have enough currency to support the massive national conversion taking place in 1971. The 1971 5-pence coin also played a role in helping people adjust psychologically to decimalization. Many older citizens had lived their entire lives with shillings and pence, and the introduction of a new currency system created real anxiety. But because the 5-pence coin matched the old shilling in size, weight, and general usage, it softened the cultural impact and made the transition more approachable. This continuity helped generate trust in the new decimal system. Schools across the United Kingdom used teaching materials to help children learn the new units of currency, and the 5-pence piece was a central part of those lessons. In classrooms, teachers passed around the coins, letting students compare them with the traditional shilling, explaining how its value would now be expressed in a simplified decimal form. For many children, the 5-pence coin became one of their earliest experiences in understanding money and mathematics in the new decimal world. The story of the British 5-pence coin of 1980 begins long before that specific year because its roots stretch back through centuries of British monetary development. The 5p coin that circulated in 1980 was part of a long journey of design reform, decimalization tradition, and economic change. To understand the 1980 5-pence piece, we first step back to the era when Britain still used the old pounds, shillings, and pence system, a monetary structure that had existed for many generations. This system divided the pound into 20 shillings and each shilling into 12 pence, creating a total of 240 pence to the pound. Among the denominations circulating during that time was the shilling, a silver-colored coin that had been familiar to the public for decades. The modern 5-pence coin, introduced in the late 20th century, was directly descended from this historic shilling, and the 1980 issue is a continuation of this legacy. By the mid-20th century, Britain began to realize the need to simplify its currency. The older system was difficult for commerce, accounting, and education. A major shift came with the decision to decimalize the currency and create a new logical system based on 100 pence to the pound. The process of decimalization culminated in 1971 when the United Kingdom officially adopted the new structure. Among the new denominations introduced was the 5-pence coin, which replaced the shilling in both value and familiar use. Because of this continuity, older citizens in the 1970s often referred to the coin as a shilling for many years after decimalization. The early 5-pence coins, including the one struck in 1980, retained much of the shilling's physical identity, being of similar size and weight, making the transition easier. The 1980 5-pence coin belongs to the first generation of decimal 5p pieces, which were issued between 1968 as pre-decimal training coins and 1990. Before the redesign that came later, these early coins were heavier and larger than the modern 5p pieces used today. The coin, minted in 1980, carried the second major portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by the sculptor Arnold Machin. This portrait shows the Queen wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara and remained one of the most recognizable royal images for decades. The inscription around the portrait read, Elizabeth II, Dei Gratia, Regina, Fidei, Defensor affirming her role, and title. This obverse design remained consistent through many years, giving the 1980 coin a familiar royal identity. Turning to the reverse, the 1980 5-pence coin continued to use the crowned Scottish thistle design created by Sir Noel Mackinnon. The thistle is a national emblem of Scotland, and its presence symbolized the unity and heritage of the nations forming the United Kingdom. The crown above the thistle added an additional message of monarchy stability and tradition. The reverse also displayed the denomination 5 pence, marking clearly the value of the coin within the decimal system. The design chosen for the early series of decimal coins reflected a strong desire to honor the individual nations of the UK, and the 5-pence coin's thistle stood proudly as part of that symbolic program. Minting conditions in 1980 were influenced by the economic environment of the late 1970s and early 1980s. Britain was experiencing inflation, industrial change, and political shifts under the government of the period. Despite these circumstances, the Royal Mint continued to produce circulating currency with high technical standards. The 5-pence coin of 1980 was struck in cupronickel, a durable alloy of copper and nickel that had long been favored for British silver-colored coins. The metal gave the coin a bright and resilient finish, maintaining its appearance even after extensive use in daily transactions. These coins were minted at the Royal Mint's facility, which by that time had recently moved to its modern location in Llantrisant, South Wales, after centuries in London. The relocation marked a new era for British coin production, and the 1985 p coin stands as one of the early products of this newer minting era, Throughout the year 1980, the 5-pence coin was widely used in everyday life. It could be found in vending machines, bus fares, public telephone shops, and markets across the country. The purchasing power of a 5-pence coin in 1980 was significantly greater than it is today, making it useful for small snacks, newspapers, and other low-cost items. People carried several 5p coins in their pockets and purses, and the coin became a routine part of daily economic activity. Its familiar size and weight were often recognized by touch alone, something that changed later when the coin was reduced. In the larger narrative of UK coinage, the 1980 5-pence coin sits at an important midpoint. It represents the early decades of decimal coinage, while also standing close to the major changes that would happen in 1990, when the Royal Mint introduced a smaller, lighter 5-pence coin. The older, larger type, including the 1980 issue, was gradually withdrawn from circulation during the early 1990s and replaced by the modern form. The result is that coins from the 1980 generation hold both nostalgic and historical value to collectors, since they capture an era that has since passed. Collectors today view the 1980 5-pence coin as a piece of decimal history. While it is not considered rare in circulated condition, it has significance as part of a complete decimal collection. The coin also attracts interest because it reflects the portrait style, minting standards, and artistic choices of its time. Uncirculated examples, especially those preserved in mint sets, hold greater value and provide a clear look at the visual quality intended by the Royal Mint. The coin's connection to the shilling also adds an interesting link to earlier centuries of British currency, making the 5p coin of 1980 both modern and historically rooted. As we extend this narrative for an in-depth documentary, the story of the 1980 5-pence coin broadens into discussions of the British economy during that decade. The evolution of Royal Mint technology, the cultural meaning of royal portraits on coins, the symbolism of national emblems, and the public experience of living through decimal change. The introduction of decimal currency required education campaigns, advertisements, posters, and wide public communication, which became an important moment in British social history. People had to learn how to think in tens and hundreds, rather than in 12s and 20s. Newspapers of the era included conversion tables, shops displayed dual-priced labels, and schools prepared lessons on the new system. The 5-pence coin was among the easiest to accept because of its connection to the shilling, giving older citizens a sense of continuity at a time of major change. The significance of the thistle design also opens a door to explore Scotland's place within the United Kingdom, the heraldic traditions of the British Isles, and the wider artistic approach taken in the early decimal series. The thistle, topped with a crown, symbolized strength, endurance, monarchy, and unity. It linked modern money with centuries of national iconography and served as a reminder that even a small coin can carry deep cultural stories. As the decade progressed, the 5p coin of this size continued to circulate, but economic conditions were shifting. Prices were rising, and the needs of daily commerce were changing, leading eventually to a decision to reduce the physical size of smaller denominations to match their declining purchasing power. The 1980 coin becomes a snapshot of the period. The story of the British 1971 new pence coin begins with one of the most significant monetary changes in modern British history, the decimalisation of the United Kingdom's currency system. Before 1971, Britain followed the centuries-old system of pounds, shillings, and pence, where 1 pound contained 20 shillings, and each shilling contained 12 pence, making conversion complex for ordinary people and inconvenient for an increasingly modern economy. By the mid-20th century, a strong demand had emerged to simplify this structure and align with global standards, which used decimal systems based on powers of 10. This shift toward modernization laid the foundation for the introduction of the new pence coins, including the 1971 2-pence piece, which would become an iconic coin of the era. Decimal Day arrived on the 15th of February 1971, marking a nationwide transformation. Millions of people were introduced to new coinage designs, new values, and a completely redesigned way of thinking about prices and money. Among the coins minted for this transition was the 2 new pence coin, dated 1971, the first year of its mass circulation. This coin carried a fresh and modern appearance, distinct from the pre-decimal coins that the public had used for generations. Its introduction represented not only a financial adjustment, but a cultural and historical shift as Britain turned a page from its Victorian and pre-Victorian economic traditions to a streamlined system, better suited for the future. The design of the 1971 new pence coin reflected both heritage and renewal. The obverse side displayed the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, who at that time was still early in her long reign. The portrait was created by Arnold Machine, one of the most respected sculptors of the 20th century. His design portrayed the Queen wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, and this portrait would become one of the most recognizable royal images used on many Commonwealth coinages. The reverse side of the 2 new pence coin featured the badge of the Prince of Wales, consisting of 3 ostrich feathers emerging from a coronet, accompanied by the motto ICHDN, meaning I serve. This emblem had been associated with the Prince of Wales since the 14th century, and its inclusion on the coin connected modern Britain with deep royal and historical tradition. The phrase new pence was used deliberately. The government knew that people needed time to adjust from the old monetary system, so to avoid confusion, the decimal coins carried the word new to distinguish them from the older pre-decimal pence. For the 2 pence coin, this helped prevent misunderstandings between the earlier coins valued differently and the fresh decimal units that now made up the new structure. The 1971 coins were part of the first fully decimalized set, and they played a crucial role in easing the British public into the revised monetary world. In its earliest years, the 1971 new pence coin became a familiar part of daily life, exchanged for bus fares purchased at local shops, used in vending machines, and carried in purses and pockets across the nation. Schools taught children how to calculate in decimal currency, adults adapted gradually, and retailers helped guide customers through the new system by displaying dual pricing for a time. The 2 pence coin in particular was useful for small everyday transactions, making it one of the most widely handled denominations during the early years of British decimalization. Minting of the 1971 2 new pence coin took place in enormous quantities at the Royal Mint, which had moved to a new purpose-built facility in Llantrisant, Wales, to accommodate the massive coin production needed for decimalization. The Royal Mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins using bronze made from copper, tin, and zinc. The thickness, weight, and color of the coin made it distinct from the smaller denominations and contributed to its solid feel in the hand, something many collectors and coin enthusiasts appreciate even today. Over time, the wording on the coin changed from new pence to 2 pence. This occurred in 1982, when the government officially decided that the transition period for decimalization was long over and the new system was firmly established. As a result, coins minted after that year no longer carried the word new. Because 1971 was the first year of the decimal coins, and because new pence as a phrase appeared for a limited period, these early coins hold a special place in the history of British numismatics. Collectors value the 1971 new pence coin, not because it is rare, but because it marks the birth of modern British currency. Millions survive today, but their historical value lies in their role in national transformation. Numismatists appreciate the design tradition, weight, and symbolism of these early decimal coins. Many hobbyists who began their interest in collecting during the 1970s fondly recall the new pence coins as the first pieces that sparked their passion for British coinage. The coin also represents an era of technological and industrial evolution. The new Royal Mint facility used advanced machinery capable of producing coins at speeds and volumes never previously possible in Britain. This allowed the government to introduce the entire decimal series rapidly and efficiently. The 1971 2 new pence coin stands as a testament to that moment of industrial growth and modernization. Culturally, the 1971 new pence coin appears in many family memories, old photographs, collections of children from the 70s and 80s, and the pockets of millions who lived through the transition. It is part of a nostalgic period for many Britons who associate these coins with school days, family outings, and the everyday rhythms of life in the early decimal era. For historians, the coin is a valuable object that helps tell the story of a country adapting to global economic norms while maintaining deep-rooted traditions. As decades passed, the coin continued to circulate widely until the 21st century when the Royal Mint shifted to copper-plated steel in place of the earlier bronze due to rising metal costs. This transition made the older bronze coins, including the 1971 new pence pieces, stand out even more as relics of a bygone time. Although still legal tender, many of them have been removed from circulation as people increasingly recognize their historical charm. Today, the 1971 British 2 new pence coin remains an important collectible, a teaching tool, a historical artifact, and a symbol of national change. Its design, elegant, traditional, and meaningful, continues to be admired. The coin tells the story of decimalization, of industrial advancement, of cultural continuity, and of a nation modernizing its identity while keeping its heritage intact. For a 2-hour detailed documentary or YouTube video, this history can be expanded by showing footage of decimal day interviews with citizens who lived through the change, expert commentary from numismatists, and demonstrations of how pre-decimal currency differed from the new system introduced in 1971.